Crimson Creed podcast. I'm Sam. This is Chris. Happy to be with you this Friday night, or whenever you're listening to us. Chris, I'm back home from Chicago, and it seems I brought your weather with me because we are pretty chilly here today, and we're fixing to get into 20s and 30s this weekend.
And it seems you brought some of your Oklahoma weather up here to stay with me because, yeah, we're getting a cold front soon, but the weather coming up is actually going to be a little bit warmer. The high, well, I guess we're about to get a cold front. The high today was 70 degrees. And then on Tuesday, there's a chance of snow up here. Look at that.
Well, there's something.
Guess the heat wave I was remembering is over.
Hey, so get this. Restaurant in Wisconsin called Noodles and Company.
We have one of those up here.
Well, this one's in Wisconsin. And what comes charging through the door? Not a car, not a man looking for the buffet for the fourth time of the day. We get a deer. Get a deer coming through. The headline here at the AP says people go to Noodles and Company to save a buck, not to have one interrupt their meal.
That's cheesy.
I have yet to ever have something actually come crashing into a place where I'm eating, where I'm doing anything really. I see these stories about cars crashing into restaurants or in any number of places. Animals coming in, robberies, whatever else. Hasn't happened to me yet, Chris.
Yeah, I can't say it's happened to me either. And I'm just waiting for the punchline that you're gonna have about I'm guessing the OU defense crashing into someone.
Hey, the OU defense did do some crashing itself a little bit at points. That UCF game, it took years off my life. It was,
It did, but here's something interesting to think about though. 35% of UCF's yardage came on two plays. Granted, those two plays, you can't give up plays like that. It let them stay in the game. It's that long run they had that went to the 1 yard line, and then the long I think it was an 84, 86 yard touchdown pass, 86
yeah,
yards.
the kiss.
Yeah. Those two plays accounted for 35% of UCF's total yardage on the day. If you hold a team to 35% of their yardage on two plays, that's not bad.
Yeah, it depends on how you time it, because that was 14 points there.
Yep.
That came from 35%. 35% equaled 2 touchdowns.
And
That's,
almost half their score.
yeah, that's a hard one to do.
But I tell you one other thing. Speaking of crashing into things, our defensive linemen, they've all been crashing into the secondary, the backfield. I mean, so we've got Trace Ford on one side, who is someone who has played against OU in the past, transferred to OU, and is now this year going to play against the team from which he transferred, Oklahoma State. We have another one of those players this weekend. Do you know who that player is?
Let's see, we're playing Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
Nope.
In the 2019 and 2020 season, before transferring to Tennessee, defensive tackle Dejon Terry was a Kansas Jayhawk who suited up against the Oklahoma Sooners, counting 0 tackles, 0 sacks, 0 pass deflections.
What year did you say? 2019?
In 2020.
So that's Jalen Hurts and Spencer Rattler.
Yep.
Those 2 years. Nice. Well, I got 4 thoughts on that UCF game. First off, OU found a way to win. And that's something that, Bob Stoops and Coach Venables both hinted at a little bit in the course of the week, was sometimes when you're a good team, you gotta grind out a win. And you'll walk on the field and you're going to be better than the other team that's out there, but you're not showing up. You're not bringing your A game, and the other team has brought theirs. They're kicking your butt a little bit. And you navigate through that mentally. We had some mental toughness this year. We've had a lot of it throughout the season, and the ability to adjust really through the game. I don't think this is a game that we win last year. I think last year we're beaten down after those first couple big plays, and then
Yep.
it's Kansas State all over again. 397 total yards. My second thought here held them to 397 yards of offense. Like you mentioned, a third of that was basically on 2 plays in the game. But that 397 still is significantly under their offense's average for the season. They were averaging over 500 yards of offense a game. So to hold them to over 100 yards below that, big win for our defense. Had a little bit of bend but don't break to our defensive scheme this week or last week, but we got it. Third point here, the run game finally got its stride back a little bit. We saw it hit in the Texas game. We saw Dylan Gabriel, we saw Tawee Walker, saw a lot of them get some movement going. Last week against Kansas, saw Chuck and Major hit their stride a little bit late in the game, albeit. But I was happy to see us find that late. It's going to be good to have Tawee Walker back this week. Hope he's not talking back to Coach Murray any more than necessary. I feel like you got to keep the coaches humble a little bit, but can't do it any more than necessary. And my last thought here, this has been something I mentioned after the Texas win, and I'm going to mention again after the UCF win. Our defense will be killed this year by ill-timed penalties and by trick plays. Our defense is really good at keeping the first assignment. They keep with the play that it looks like is going to be there, and they keep with it perfectly. But when the opposing offense throws in a wrinkle, Texas on that 4th and 2 play down just a little north of the 50, having the tight end leak out the back, right? When they throw a wrinkle in, UCF too, with the rollout to the left side there by Plumlee, when they throw in that wrinkle and make it a trick play, especially through the air, that's where we seem to struggle a lot. And then the ill-timed penalties, Trace Ford against Texas, getting the unsportsmanlike conduct penalty late, and Jaren Kanak against UCF on what was going to be another goal line stand, I think. After third down, unsportsmanlike conduct. Can't have those. These are exciting games, but we can't have those. And that's going to kill us if it's not gotten under control. Tell me what you noticed in this game, what you're taking away from it.
No, I completely agree with you on that. The first thing I noticed was, like you said, with the defense, 397 total yards doesn't sound good, but you said they were averaging over 500 yards a game. Going into the game, they were the number 4 offense in the country. The number 4 offense in the country. And they had only 1 first down in the entire first quarter. It was the last play of the first quarter where it was on third down, and they had to really work to get that first down. We dominated them on the defensive side for a good chunk of that game. I think there ended up being like 6 or 7 3-and-outs against the number 4 offense in the country. It's nothing to turn your nose up. I mean, Gus Malzahn told his players after the game that OU is the best team in the country. He was telling them, hey, you went out there and you almost beat the best team in the country. We're hearing more and more and more coaches from other teams tell us how good under the Lincoln Riley era, it was always, oh, we're close. We're right there. We're so close. We heard Lincoln Riley say that, but like, if you remember correctly, in the 2019 destruction against LSU, Ed Orgeron was telling his team in the pregame, he said, there's no reason you can't just destroy this team, because he knew we weren't as good as we thought we were. Other coaches are now coming in saying they're better than we thought they were. And that all starts on the defense, because our defense, they're doing amazing things. The next thing that I noticed is that Dylan Gabriel, he's been having a great season, and the interception was not on him. It was in and out of the chest of Drake Stoops. But I feel like he's kind of getting more anxious in these games. We saw it a little bit in the early stages against Texas, but he corrected it as the game went on. And we saw it for a lot of the first half, primarily against UCF. Throwing into double or triple coverage, making poorly timed throws, waiting too long to throw the ball, missing open receivers. I feel like sometimes he's trying to do too much instead of just running the offense. And that's going to bite us at some point. That is going to bite us. I've been saying for weeks, we need to be worried about Oklahoma State. Well, Oklahoma State's getting better and better every week, and they're becoming a team that's capitalizing off of other teams' mistakes. Dylan Gabriel makes those types of mistakes. We'll see how that pans out next week when we play Oklahoma State, but we're focusing on Kansas right now. Overall, my thoughts on the UCF game were we were caught in a hangover after a great win against the number 3 team in the country. And a lot of the country was caught in that same hangover. Washington almost lost to unranked 1-win Arizona State.
That would have been a
North
bad
Carolina,
loss, man.
it would have been horrible. North Carolina lost to Virginia. Texas almost lost to Houston. USC lost to Utah, who didn't really look too good themselves. Oregon, they ended up pulling it out in the fourth quarter, but they struggled a little bit against Washington State. I think we are a really good team. I don't think we are championship level yet, but I think we're a really good team. And someone who I think is really going to help us become really good to great is someone who's been underutilized this year, and that's Gavin Sawchuk. When we've seen him out there, he hasn't done too much except for in this game. What I've heard reading various reports of the beat writers and all the people who follow the practices is he had that injury in the offseason in his leg, and he hadn't really been trusting himself to not hurt his leg again. He's been playing cautiously, and that's what's kept us from seeing the Gavin Sawchuk we saw in the Cheez-It Bowl. But we began to see in the fourth quarter, he knew he just had to
the
lower.
cheesiest.
We saw, especially in the fourth quarter against UCF, he knows that if he just lowers his pads and plows ahead, there are very few defenders who can stop him before he gets 5 or 6 yards. He really began to look great in that fourth quarter, especially with the 30-yard touchdown run. He's someone who stuck out to me. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets the start this week against Kansas, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him make his way towards being the number 1 running back for OU this year.
I'd be surprised to see him get the start. I think Tawee Walker is the one that's proven himself this year.
He's done well.
Tell you the one that surprised me to not see as much is Javante Barnes. And it sounds like Barnes is going to be active this week. I was reading that, or it looks like he's going to be available for play against Kansas. So we'll see how that goes. But Barnes had something of a good year last year. Going back to North Carolina, is it not the most North Carolina thing ever to walk into an October game against a 1-5 or 2-4 or whatever Virginia team and just lay an egg?
It's the second time in the past 3 seasons that they've been in the top 10 and lost to an unranked team out of Virginia. 2021, first game of the season, they lose to Virginia Tech. This year, they're ranked number 10, lose to Virginia. I don't know how Mac Brown always finds a way to drop games like this.
They keep cracking that top 10, and then they lose, and then they lose some more.
I don't know what he's doing over there.
They end up in the fried rice bowl. It's just not good. Standout player for me from this week was Nick Anderson. 2 touchdown catches against UCF. That man is something else. He's a freshman. We've got a lot of time still to go with Mr. Nick Anderson. I don't think we're in any danger of him transferring anywhere. Sometimes you'll get a player, and anymore you kind of hope against hope that they choose to stick around. They don't transfer out somewhere. He's got the Anderson namesake here at the university. He's a man.
I want to know if Mr. and Mrs. Anderson have any more sons that they want to send our way.
Yeah, no doubt. Offense this week. Speaking of Nick Anderson, so slow to materialize. The defense came out all firing on all cylinders. Tackles for loss, quarterback pressure, pass breakups, all the works on that first 3 drives maybe. And offense goes 3 and out on the first one, punts on the second drive. And if I remember correctly, they don't capitalize on the third drive either. So the defense gets 3 stops in a row. And that's where the complementary football kicks in. You want to have your offense go out there after the defense gets a big stop and have the offense put up some points, right? Put a
Don't
drive
forget the
up.
missed field goals.
Yes, the missed field goals too. But you want the offense to go out and put some points up on those early drives, because that's going to force your opponent to change up their game plan a little bit. Instead, them holding us to nothing on those first few drives, they got to just stick with their game plan, grow into it, and it eventually ended up clicking for them and working. So it was really good to see some late game adjustments. That's another thing last year we don't see as much. We see sticking with the same thing over and over. We see on 3rd and 6, little halfback draw when we're down 14 near the end of the game.
Look at the Texas Tech game last year.
Yes. So it's good to see some late game adjustments. I mentioned earlier the running game getting going late. Just kind of shows we can be multi-dimensional at any point of the game.
Yeah, I agree. And Brent Venables, he was talking at the beginning of the season about how, statistically speaking, not just via the eye test, but statistically speaking, the fourth quarter was our worst quarter of the season last year.
Terrible.
Yep. And every 1-score game that we found ourselves in 2022, we found a way to lose. And I mentioned the Texas Tech game. Offense and defense both came out hot. We're up 24-6 early. We lose 48-45 or 51-48. I can't remember which one.
Yeah, something like that.
And that also suffered because of a lack of a good kicking game. But
I'm
this
still
year,
adamant that field goal went in.
I'm pretty sure it was too, but if ifs and buts. One other thing to remember though, we've now been in 2 1-score games in a row that were tight in the fourth quarter, where at some point in the fourth quarter we were losing and we found a way to win. In week 2 against SMU, it was a 1-score game in the fourth quarter. OU was winning 14-11, final score 28-11. Texas, we're losing 30-27 with 1:17 to go. We win 34-30. In this game in the fourth quarter, we're losing 23-17. We end up winning 31-29. It's really just amazing seeing those adjustments. We have 2 teams this year. We have against teams that aren't just walkovers like Arkansas State and Tulsa. We have a dominant offense with shutdown defense, or we have shutdown defense, I'm sorry, I misspoke. We have dominant offense with okay defense, or shutdown defense with okay offense. If those 2 teams come together, there's not a single team in the country we couldn't beat. I'm including Georgia, I'm including Alabama, I'm including Michigan, I'm including everybody. If those 2 teams worked together, there's no one we couldn't beat. But whenever the offense is showing up, they're scoring touchdown after touchdown. Our defense is giving up touchdown, then field goal, then field goal, then touchdown, and then field goal.
We need another 76-0.
Yes, I would love a 76-0, especially against Oklahoma State, but that's neither here nor there. I think our team is really good. There's just some things that they need to work against. And I tell you, one of those things is going to come into effect against Kansas this week. Kansas, their defense, they are a very physical unit. They're not statistically very good. They give up a whole bunch of yards a game, but if you watch how they play, they are so physical. They want to destroy you. They want to blow you up in the backfield. They want to dominate you. And let me tell you some of their stats on the season so far. They have sacked the quarterback 18 times. 18 times have they sacked a quarterback this year. I think OU is at 17. They have 29 pass deflections. They have intercepted the ball 7 times. And when it comes to forced fumbles, they have 9. They forced 9 fumbles on the year. They might give up a lot of big plays, they might give up a lot of points, but they are going to make you fight for those because they want to strip the ball away. And given how OU's offensive line is playing as of late, we're going to see them bring pressure. We're going to see them bring 6, maybe even 7 people at a time because they know our offensive line could cave easily if they don't fix their crap.
Chris,
And
I'm so hoping they bring 7 people on a regular basis. If they do, we're going to win this game and cover 3 times.
I would certainly like to see us do it, but all they need to do is delay our wide receivers for a second. Then they have 3 people in the backfield because our offensive line struggles. This is a physical Kansas team. Our offense needs to be prepared to get rid of the ball quick. They need to make more consistent decisions through the air. I'm thinking we're going to see a lot of slants, a lot of RPOs, a lot of short to mid-range crosses. We'll see a deep shot or two because that's just a Jeff Lebby offense. But I think we're going to have to see a lot of quick offensive game if we're going to really dominate their defense, because like I said, they don't put up the best numbers on defense, but they are so physical, they make up for it.
Yeah. No, it's something to see. You talk about physical, seeing Danny Stutzman and Jaren Kanak in the blitz package that we run a lot of times.
I love it.
It's can you imagine being a quarterback? You're just standing there minding your business, plotting out the 9 route on the side, getting your running back into position. You're sitting there, you look up, and Stutzman and Kanak come right up on the line. You're like, oh man. So this is what they meant when they said Texas fears Oklahoma.
And you know they're coming too. And now we're seeing more and more edge threats. Trace Ford, Ethan Downs, they're coming to life on the edge. So you really have to worry about getting blown up. I don't know what it is that Ethan Downs is yelling at quarterbacks when he throws them to the ground. I don't
I'm
want to
here
be on the
for it, man.
receiving end of it.
No. Looking to the Kansas game and what OU's defense needs to be ready for. Kansas's offense, they've thrown 14 passing touchdowns this season. Only 2 of those have come deep outside. Everything else has been either like screen area, short outside, or it's been mid to deep range over the middle. 12 passing touchdowns of their 14 deep to over the middle. OU's got to be ready for that. The middle of the field gave us a few fits against Texas. For the most part, we've managed it well, but we need to be looking for it this week. Their rushing offense, 4th ranked in the conference. UCF was 2nd ranked. We held their rushing game, as much as we needed to hold it to be able to pull out the win. So I'm optimistic. Kansas, UCF's a little better than Kansas in that regard. So I'm hopeful that we've learned something from last week. We're out of the Texas hangover period, and we can come out and have that dominant force that we saw in the first 4 games or so of the season and shut down the Kansas running game. Jason Bean, last part here, he's only completing about 65% of his passes right now. So middle of the road, not great, not bad either. But what it means, we'll have a lot of opportunities to create turnovers because there's probably going to be some deflections, going to be some errant throws maybe. So I'm looking for Peyton Bowen, for Billy Bowman, Woody Washington, looking for these guys to be ready to go. Lawrence Arnold, he is Kansas's Jalil Farouk. He's their leading receiver. He's got quickness, he's got strength, he's got size. He's a matchup nightmare for a lot of defensive backs. Be looking for Peyton Bowen to be covering this guy, Gentry Williams as well, and hopefully we can hold him. I think Kansas goes out, they put up some points. I do think we cover. We're a 9-point favorite as of this podcast. That line has gone down substantially today, gone down over 1.5 today. So it'll probably be a little lower.
8.5 right now.
Man, yeah, it'll probably be a little lower come game time. But what whatever the spread is, I think we cover it. I've got OU in a 38-20 win.
That's my exact same score prediction, 38-20. I
Well, if two
I
people said it, it's going to happen, right?
I posted a little bit about it on my recent blog post on the Soonerpocket.com. I said that I'm expecting this game to be very similar to the 2017 regular season matchup against TCU. That one, of
I
course,
was
was
there
in
for that.
Norman. Yeah, I remember I was almost there, but tickets ended up falling through there. But I think we're going to see the OU offense go out there and dominate early. And we're going to see the defense play well enough throughout the game that even though we might not score too much in the second half, we're not worried because we know the defense is playing so well. They're not going to allow Kansas to come back. So 38-20 is my prediction. I don't think it'll be as rapid as it was in the TCU game. I think we probably get to 24-28 in the first half and then score the remainder in the second half, probably the fourth quarter. Defense, they'll give up their first 10 points, I imagine, in the first quarter. And then we might see some late second half points, but that's it. I don't think Kansas is going to find any type of sustained success against us. So 38-20 is also my prediction.
I like it, man. Looking to the rest of week 9, 3 games that caught my eye here. Oregon and Utah. Should be a decent game. Still can't overlook the fact that Utah doesn't have Cam Rising. Oregon pulls this one out and probably dominates after the first quarter. BYU and Texas. Gotta hope for something here, right? Hope for a little burnt orange blood. I think
I'd love
Texas. Yeah, I think Texas probably wins this one. Don't know that it's the kind of dominant win that you might normally see from Texas at this point in the season. Just being without Quinn Ewers, having Malik Murphy back there, solid quarterback though. But
also, I think BYU is also missing their starting quarterback this week too.
yeah. And then lastly, we talked about North Carolina earlier, but some chaos possibly in the ACC. Georgia Tech is where North Carolina is playing this week. And this seems like just the kind of game for North Carolina to drop.
They found a way to beat Miami.
Boy, they did. Miami would have just run the ball or knelt the ball. Excuse me. They did run the ball, and look how that turned out. Any other games really sticking out to you from this slate?
Georgia, Florida could be a good game. Graham Mertz is playing a lot better than people thought he would at Florida. He's doing really well. And Georgia is without Brock Bowers for the rest of the regular season. And he's been 100% of their offensive success, 100% the reason. So we'll see. I imagine Georgia wins that one, but we'll see what happens.
Georgia kills them.
The Oregon-Utah game, I'm kind of looking at like the Oregon-Colorado game. Colorado they launched a raging comeback and almost beat USC. And then the next week they go up against Oregon and get absolutely manhandled because they're a complete team. Utah, they were without most of their starters against USC, and it showed how bad USC's defense is because Utah still kind of dominated offensively.
Lincoln Riley has a bad defense.
I think without Cam Rising and all their other starters, I don't think there's a chance Utah can keep this one close against Oregon, especially with how well Bo Nix is playing. 19 touchdowns, 1 interception on the year. Here's a game that should be a good basketball game and a good football game. Number 20 Duke versus number 18 Louisville. See what happens there. Duke did not look too great against Florida State last week on offense.
No, that was a shellacking.
And there's also Colorado versus UCLA. UCLA is ranked number 23. They've been kind of finding a rhythm lately, especially with their defense, but I don't know. I think Deion Sanders is probably tired of losing so much, and we'll probably see something special cooked up. I could see it being a good game.
Yeah, that's fair. Last thing, real quick, I want to touch on college football playoff. First poll will be coming out Tuesday on Halloween. Maybe we'll get a spooky surprise in there. Probably not. I think this poll ends up pretty closely mirroring the AP poll with Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, Florida State 1-4, assuming none of them lose this week. And again, assuming these teams win, OU, Washington, and Texas 5, 6, and 7, rounding out that top slate of teams. Are there any ones you see differently?
No, I agree with OU being above Washington. They have a better ranked win. Washington beat like the number 9 team on Washington's home field. We beat the number 3 team at a neutral site. Our win is better. And I honestly think we're kind of a better team. Alabama, I think if they have if they have a dominant enough win this week, we could potentially see them jump Oregon or Texas. Oregon, maybe not if they handle Utah. Texas, I could see them being number 7 in the playoff poll. I could also see them being number 10. It'll depend on if the playoff committee thinks they're overrated, which usually they are, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, fair point. You've been listening to the Crimson Creed podcast, another edition here from Sam and Chris. Make sure this week, before the game, during the game, after the game, check out SoonerPocket.com. That's Chris's OU football blog. Lots of great content on there. He's got you covered with any stats, pictures, angles on the game, everything you might want to know. It's solid stuff. Check it out. Again, that's SoonerPocket.com. Let's hope for a win against Kansas this week up in Lawrence. Good luck to the Sooners. Good luck to the fans. Those of you that will be watching, here's to keeping yours on your life this week. Boomer Sooner.
Boomer Sooner.